In recent weeks, the dress code in Korea has simply been wear red. The place to be? Anywhere showing South Korea's World Cup matches. Soccer fever is at its peak here in Korea, as the national team made history in South Africa, qualifying into the final 16 for the first time away from home soil. Street cheering events like this were popularized during the 2002 Korea-Japan World Cup, when Korea reached the semifinals of the tournament. And this year, there were over 300 street viewing parties planned all across Korea, drawing up to 2 million people for each South Korean match. As millions of South Koreans gather on the streets, in bars and restaurants, or in their homes on game days, local eateries, food delivery chains, and even convenience stores are struggling to keep up with the increased demand. But they don't seem to be complaining.
Many more people than expected are coming out to cheer in the streets, and sales are 10 times higher than usual. Beer and snacks are selling especially well.
It's great. Sales have doubled or tripled. And I also think it's great because the World Cup is helping the economy in many ways.
Fried chicken and beer is a favorite game time meal for many Koreans. And according to a recent report, shares of a major chicken restaurant chain jumped up 30% in the month of June alone. With the throngs of people heading out with cash ready to spend, economic experts are calculating the boost to the local economy in the billion-dollar range.
The World Cup encouraged more private spending. For example, sales of chicken products saw explosive growth. The direct economic impact of making it to the round of 16 and the possibility for a spot in the final 8 could be estimated at $1 billion.
Korea's conglomerates have also jumped on the World Cup bandwagon to get a piece of the action. From company-sponsored chants and slogans to World Cup songs and even dances, Korea's business giants are pulling out all the stops to take advantage of one of the world's largest sports marketing opportunities. Some of Korea's biggest names in business have hired the biggest names in entertainment and culture. Everyone from the latest boy bands to figure skating star Kim Yeon-ah, and from the World Cup stars of yesteryears to the heroes who roam the soccer field today to pitch their companies and products to the soccer-crazed public. Companies like Samsung, LG, SK Telecommunications, Lotte, and Hyundai Kia Motors have spent a combined $34 million on domestic advertising alone, and they're expected to reap huge benefits.
With the direct impact from such exposure, the ad campaign they created is worth at least $1.4 billion.
You can definitely sense the deflation here as the tens of thousands of South Korean soccer supporters file back to their homes and back to their lives post the World Cup. They came out here tonight, braving the first monsoon showers, hoping for another miraculous run. But who could blame them? With the combined direct and indirect economic effect for every South Korean victory calculated to be in the neighborhood of $2 billion. It didn't matter if you're a soccer fan or not. Everyone in South Korea was hoping for a repeat of 2002.
Apple's iPhone is shaking up the South Korean cell phone market, for years the exclusive domain of domestic giants like Samsung Electronics. Since the iPhone's debut late last year, the popularity of smartphones among tech-savvy South Koreans has soared, bringing with it a whole new industry of applications for these gadgets. Juweon Kim reports.
South Koreans are relative latecomers to the smartphone market. But the smartphone floodgates were opened in November last year with the entrance of Apple's iPhone. And ever since then, the public's thirst for the gadgets has been wild.
These days, there are a lot of good Wi-Fi and NetSpot connections, so it's really convenient to look things up right away on the spot. When it comes to English learning apps, they even have features like pronunciation guides. I think the applications can be very useful.
Both of these phones allow you to make phone calls, take pictures and video, and access the internet. This older model actually had a video chat function years before Apple's latest iPhone 4. So what makes a smartphone, well, smart? The answer: the hundreds of thousands of applications that are available at your fingertips. Apps like Bully. The simple yet addictive game has ranked as a top download in a dozen countries around the world. That's good news for Juweon Kim, the brains behind Bully.
전 세계적으로 분리해
For the global market as a whole, with the free and pay versions combined, Bully has been downloaded some 2 million times.
40만 개 정도.
Looking at just the Korean market, there have been about 400,000 downloads of both the free and pay versions.
두 명 중에 한 분.
It's also popular in places like Brazil, Singapore, and Hong Kong, where the game has been ranked first in downloads.
싱가포르 이런 나라에서도 다 1위를 좀 했었고요.
But apps are more than games or ways to kill time. Meet Hyun-suk Lee, one of Korea's celebrity English teachers. English education is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and Lee is one of the pioneers in a new segment, teaching by app.
In the line of business, in the English teaching business that I've been in for the last several years, we create a lot of contents. And when you create contents, you always have to find new ways to sell them. Now, first it was books, and then later on it was online lectures, which really became big in Korea. But I think the next generation was applications out there, smartphones, the number of smartphones exploding and everything.
So just how big is the Korean apps market? Apple Korea declined to share download figures for the country, but SK Telecom, Korea's largest mobile phone carrier, says its T-market averaged around 300,000 app downloads a day in July. Current prices range from 85 cents to a little over $4. With these kinds of figures, a developer with the right app can make a profit within days.
Altogether, I guess the break-even point has been met like within a week of sales. And now I think the first app we kind of made has made at least 4 or 5 times the money that we invested in the first place. So it's pretty good for a pilot project that we started.
Apple successfully captured the early apps market worldwide with 67% market share in 2009. But telecom research firm Ovum predicts that by 2015, it will be overtaken by phones using Google's Android operating system. English educator Lee says playing both sides is key to maximizing profits.
In order to maximize your profit, you really have to have the 2 versions of apps out there, one for the Android market, one for iTunes. But it's a completely different game. It's 2 different languages. One's Russian, the other one's Japanese, to give you an analogy. So what you have to do, you need 2 separate developers developing the same application.
Korea's sole carrier of the iPhone, KT, has seen more than $4 billion of revenue growth since they launched the iPhone in November 2009. Both KT and rival SK Telecom have created programs to train thousands of new app developers.
Looking at the big picture, I believe this is the third wave. The first wave was in the early 1990s with the personal computer boom, which provided the foundation for the IT industry. The second wave was the internet boom in the early 2000s, which drastically changed people's living patterns. I believe the third wave is technology that combines the internet and the PC into a device that can be held in one hand, the smartphone.
Worldwide, the app market is projected to grow 800% in the next 3 years to almost $16 billion. The area with the biggest growth will be the Asia-Pacific region, creating more opportunities for developers in tech-crazed South Korea.
The number of smartphones will jump to 60 million next year, or more than 30% of the mobile phone market, marking the beginning of the smartphone era and South Korea as the world's fastest-growing smartphone market.
After months of delay, Apple's iPhone 4 has finally been approved for sale here in Korea. Consumers reserved some 120,000 iPhone 4s on the first day of pre-orders alone. With each new generation of phones comes a new generation of apps, and now a new wave of business opportunities. Juweon Kim, Asia Biz Forecast, Seoul.